Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today we are on episode number 4 of Witchy Things to Draw. I love how that rhymed on that particular occasion. But yes, we are on the 4th instalment of this little series I've started. We have 2 prompts today, one of which is a burnt match and the second is a sprig of rosemary. I'm sure you will have seen I had a little sprig of rosemary just as a visual reference there, just so I could sort of understand how it was built, and also I like the smell. This also gave me an opportunity though to pull the branches apart a little and perhaps just find a way of stylising this. I also took to the internet to have a little look at some of the visual references of the little flowers, because we did used to have a rosemary in our garden. However, it didn't survive so well, but I do recall it having the most beautiful, pretty little flowers. As for a burnt match, well, I didn't bring one of those onto my desk because they are a little bit crumbly, but I have lit plenty of candles over the years with them and pretty confident I know what they look like. The thing is, when drawing a burnt match, is it's not going to stay intact. Yes, you're going to have a charred end to it, but it's not going to, well, it doesn't very often stay in its original form. It tends to taper off where it's burnt, and at the very tip it's going to remain, I guess, intact, and that's probably because of the ignition part of it not fully burning away, and you don't even need to know about this sciencey stuff. I'd worked on a few ways of creating a composition before settling on one, and I kind of like the idea of a rosemary border just up one side with a hint of it up the left hand corner top, with a burnt match in the centre which has just freshly been extinguished, so we have some of that gorgeous lovely swirly smoke, which gave me a nice excuse to go a little bit Art Nouveau with this. The mediums I'm using are drawing inks, and I'm using the ones from the Up Crate, I think it was the January box, alongside some Winsor & Newton drawing inks that I already had in. I also decided that I would like to try this on a mid-tone paper because the earthy brown colour that came with the Up Crate stuff, and I'm not going to pronounce the name of the ink brand because I'll just butcher it, but you know the ones I mean. I thought that would be brilliant to complement that mid-tone, just like I thought on the unboxing. And it's also a nice opportunity to block in all of that negative space where obviously nothing's drawn. Because it dries quite quickly, I find, or everything at the moment in my house is drying quickly, it does actually leave quite an interesting texture behind. And normally I would be gasping and I'd be like, this is awful, I want it perfectly smooth, but I actually really like the texture that's created here. I think because there's quite a lot of open space in the background, I think having that texture there just keeps it a little bit more visually interesting, and again, I quite liked it, so I kept it in there. I used a glass dip pen rather than the metal nib ones because I'm quite happy using this. I don't have to dip things quite as frequently, and I hold the pen weird. It's just a better fit, and I use this to again use that brown ink and just give everything a little bit more definition with an outline. Now, I think it's best to mention why I'm a little late. I don't know how many of you know, but my dog has not been very well at all this week. Last Sunday I was in the emergency vets for 4 hours, and I don't feel like they'd diagnosed him properly. I'm not going to go into a big rant about it, but he was still poorly for a little while afterwards, and there was some misinformation sent our way with what was wrong with him and what they'd treated him with. As you can imagine, I have had my eyes like a hawk on the dog all week, and thankfully he is a lot better than he was. He's still not 100% quite there yet, but compared to last week he is a lot better. Understandably though, I've had to spend a lot more time looking after him and just making sure he's okay, and not quite had enough time to perhaps voice over and edit this fully, so I just want to say a massive thank you for your patience with this one. Anyway, let's get back to the drawing, shall we? So it's time to start adding just a hint of colour, and again it's a diluted Winsor & Newton green, and I love just how delicate and subtle this is. I gave it 2 coats. The first one was to block out the colour area, and then the second one was just to add a little hint of depth. However, because I had been quite subtle with everything here, I thought it would be quite good to go around everything with a liner, so I got a good old Faber-Castell Pitt pen out just to add a little bit more oomph there before continuing to block out that background colour. I used the same watered down brown ink just to add that in there because I wanted again to preserve that texture, and I actually quite liked how there was a double layer of it too. I know it looks like I've used a black ink here, but I definitely haven't, and this is the brown. It's just how it shows up on this page. It's so pigmented, even when it's diluted as well. As you can see though, it's just created a little bit more of a contrast with everything and makes all those little tiny matchsticks stand out a little bit more, as well as those lovely little sprigs of rosemary. Now, who here is a fan of rosemary? I love the smell of it. I think it smells so gorgeous and fresh, and it's a really nice smell, but I cannot stand the taste. Oh, I think it's a horrible seasoning. To me, it tastes like the smell of pine trees, which again, they smell amazing, but the taste, for me, rosemary is just not, it's not doing it for that particular sense, so I can't, oh no, not a fan. But let me know in the comments whether you're a fan of rosemary or not. And of course, if you have any suggestions on how I can enjoy rosemary a little bit more, that will be greatly appreciated. It is now time to start adding some highlights, and I use a few different materials here, the first of which is a good old jelly roll in white. I believe this might have been a 0.5 or a 0.8 nib because I just wanted it to be super duper fine. I also added a little bit of a highlight using a Pilot Pintor marker pen. It's basically a Posca but by a different brand, and again that just makes that framework stand out. For adding a little bit more highlight to the smoke area, I used a Posca brush pen, which was a first for me, and they're very, very unusual things indeed, but I quite liked it. It just added a softer edge to doing all of that, I guess, highlighting on smoke. I finally went in there and just touched up and made a few of those matches stand out a little bit more. Again, this was quite a hard prompt to do. Now, has it been one of my favourites? Not really. It's been a tough week, so I think maybe I'm attaching those emotions to that. However, I do quite like the overall result. With what I had, that's not a bad attempt. I'd just like to say thank you ever so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this, a like and a comment go a long way, and of course share it with all your friends. In the meantime, I will see you all very soon. Bye!